Hi everyone. I'm Alex Barawi. I'm the creator of the show. I'm joined here with one of my team members, Kat.
I'm Kat Oskazar. I am helping with the Wildcard Shuffled project specifically, which is a totally separate team from the main pilot, hence why I'm here and not there.
Yeah, we just kind of sort of wanted to take time to make this, just to sort of explain, what is this project, and why we're doing it, and sort of what our timeline is for it, and just to sort of clarify. We're still actively working on our pilot episode. We're still aiming to have that finished, as quickly as possible. We don't have a specific release date for that yet, but we're aiming for sometime in 2022. So diving right back into Wildcard Shuffled. So this idea is something that Kat and I had been discussing for a while. Very early on, in the days of Wildcard, Kat had actually created some sort of test comics for the series because we had talked about various other ways that we can tell the story that aren't necessarily based in animation. Because as all of you know, animation is very expensive. It takes a really long time to get a finished product. But with comics, the turnaround is much quicker and we can continue to produce stories and content in a shorter amount of time. So that's really the goal with Wildcard Shuffled, is that we want to be able to tell new stories, introduce new characters, introduce new mysteries, introduce the background stories of different characters in a quick and efficient way leading up to the pilot. So we have sort of developed this timeline of what that might look like between now and the potential TBD release date of our pilot. So we're planning on doing live streams with our artists and our voice actors, releasing episodes on a periodic basis. We recently launched a Patreon, so we might be holding some events or live streams over there. And then, hopefully this will all culminate in the release of our pilot, within a year or so. And then, Kat and I are actively working on new ideas in the Shuffled series. So what this means basically is each episode, quote unquote, of the series is sort of its own self-contained story or mystery. So it will focus on a specific character or, a specific case that, one of the characters is solving. So our first one we do have planned for launch this month in May. It's a comic that focuses around Rachel that some of you actually may have already seen. It's one of the first comics that Kat worked on for the series. And so we're actually sort of restructuring that now and putting voices to it. We have a composer who's going to be making music for it. There'll be sound effects, minor animations, and text scrolling. So we're hoping to launch that before the end of this month. So keep an eye out for that. And then once that is released, we're sort of going to jump right into the main series. We have a really big, sort of hefty case, for episode number 2 that Kat is working on now that we're hoping to release sequentially over the next couple of months. It's a really sort of long and somewhat intricate case, and it's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Kat does with it. I'm really excited to see how she creates the new characters that are appearing in it, and sort of the facial expressions that go along with some of the funnier or more intense moments in the comic. So we're really excited to share that with you in the next couple of months or so. But for now, definitely keep an eye out for the Rachel comic at the end of the month. And again, just wanted to clarify, this is a project that's worked on by a completely separate team than the project that's working on the pilot. Kat, is a comic specialist. This is what she does. She actually has her own web comic that's really great, and I'd recommend checking it out. So there's no resources that are being pulled away from the pilot for this. It's completely separate. It's really just the purpose of it is to fill time between now and the pilot, and to give you something to watch and to interact with. So there's not this huge time period of just nothing. Or memes. Lately, we've been on sort of a meme kick where we're just posting like concept art of memes. So if you want something a little bit more, story and character driven, this is sort of what this is. Wildcard Shuffled is what you're looking for, and we hope we can get it to you soon. And we hope you're excited about it.
Yeah, so if you, for example, donated to the Kickstarter and you see that there's a Patreon and you're like, why is there a Patreon if I contributed to the Kickstarter? Well, the Patreon is to help keep the production of other things up. So it's not a hard goal. It's not like if the Patreon falters, then everything is lost. The animation money is still obtained and the animation budget is still set aside. It just helps Alex make other content that can keep you entertained in the meantime, because I believe the pilot isn't when you say it's scheduled to come out in 2022, it's mid to second half of the year, so like late summer, early fall at the best, winter at the worst, I think. And
yeah, that's right.
so it's definitely going to take a while, and he doesn't want to leave everything completely empty and everybody completely in the dark in the meantime. So that's why we talked, because I'm not specifically helping with the pilot at the moment. I helped a little bit in the beginning, but my contributions toward it are everything I needed to do is done. So I don't currently have anything to do. So he approached me initially and was like, hey, I can't take anything out of the animation budget, that's for the animators, but this is coming out of my own pocket. I really want to get more content made. Do you have any ideas? So we started talking back and forth, and he has these stories that would come before or just around the pilot that would not actually be included in the series itself. It's just extra content that we can work with, and I was like, well, your voice actors aren't going to have anything to do until a certain point, so dubs are fine. And then I don't have anything to do, so I can work on this, and it wouldn't detract from the pilot at all, which I think was really important to you, and it's really important to both of us that we be transparent about that, because I know Kickstarted projects, especially from the Tumblr days, have a history of just dropping off the face of the earth and never going anywhere. So I was like, we should probably make an announcement so people know we're not absolutely running off with the money.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a primary goal of this too, is just to be honest with everyone. I think, that's always been our policy on this project, is to just be transparent about, what we're doing and what our timeline is. We haven't been able to give significant updates on the pilot as frequently as we want to, just because, there are a lot of factors that contribute to that. Animation and pre-production just takes a lot of time, and a lot of what's done in the early stages, the first couple of months, is not really exciting or not stuff that's share worthy. It's really just like scheduling, organizing animation teams, doing some minor storyboarding and script rewrites and stuff like that. It's not really anything that we can share at this point, and so that's why you haven't seen a whole lot about the pilot yet. But in the next couple of months that's going to change. I'd say before the end of the year, we'll be full swing into storyboarding. And then we have done some recording for very minor scenes in the pilot. That's just like one-off lines, that don't need a storyboard or don't need a rough animation to be recorded for. So we still are working on that, but right now, basically the short answer is nothing we can share right now would not spoil the pilot. So we want you to be able to watch it, with fresh eyes, not know anything that's going to happen plot-wise or any other detail-wise, so you can sort of maximize your enjoyment of it. So, I absolutely can assure you it's being worked on. It has been worked on, since the Kickstarter wrapped up. Any of the money, you may or may not have contributed is all going towards the pilot, or all went towards the merchandise you received. So I just want to assure everyone, we are actively working on it, and Wildcard Shuffled will not delay production at all. It's a completely separate project, separate team, just meant to help, further assure you that we are continuing to create content and work on building out the series and the characters in the world before the launch of the pilot. Hopefully another part of this is that, with us continuing to produce more content, comics or otherwise, it'll broaden the reach of the series. The series will gain more traction, get more popular, and that, will translate into more fans, which then translates into more support on our Patreon, which can help us, maybe we'll get enough on Patreon to do short animations, in addition to the comics, which is something, I know we've gotten a lot of requests for, but again, the biggest barrier for that is just cost. It's really expensive, even just to do a very short minute-long animation. We're talking thousands of dollars, and quite possibly up to 6 months of someone's time.
Yeah.
So we always aim to compensate all of the people working on the show as fairly as possible and meet industry level prices for artwork, animation, voice acting, any work that's done on the series. So as you can imagine, without any support from a network, and having our Kickstarter funds be specifically allocated to just the pilot, that adds up. I'm literally the only person who is paying for things on the show. It's all completely funded out of my own pocket or the money I get on Patreon. So the support is definitely highly appreciated. I really want to give a huge thank you to anyone who's already taken the extra step to become a patron, and has supported us in that way, because it really does make a huge difference. And if you are not in a financial position where you can support the show, that's totally fine. I wouldn't expect that from anyone. All I ask of you is just continue to support the show in other ways. Watch our content, when we post on YouTube, share our artwork when we post on social media, spread the word. If you have friends who you think would be interested in the show and the characters, please let them know that we exist. Any form of sharing and word of mouth that you can do, it makes a huge difference. That, I think, I would argue, makes even more of a difference than a financial contribution, because you're helping to gain more traction with the show and give it more exposure. And I think that is something that's so valuable. I think the show has definitely gotten, I would say, semi-popular, for a product that doesn't really have an episode or something specific other than just character designs and artwork. I think we have a pretty sizable and engaged base right now. So we definitely want to keep that energy up, and we hope that by consistently putting out content over the next year, we'll draw new people, and kind of intrigue people who haven't heard of the series, or who maybe have heard or saw the series, but weren't really interested in it based on the character designs and artwork, and now have sort of a piece of the world with the voice acting and comics and actually telling a specific story within the world. I think that's going to make a huge difference, and I'm really excited to be working with Kat on that project.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to be working on it. Like Alex said, the only downside about animation is it's expensive, and he really does. Essentially, like, he pays us rates that he researches and makes sure are good rates. So I've even tried to be like, oh, I don't need that rate. I live in a fairly low cost of living state. I can undercut that by half. He's like, no, take the money. You deserve the money. So he does definitely try to pay us fairly. Downside being, animation's really expensive. So that's why otherwise you'd see a lot more of it, I think, as little like snippets of character things. But again, if the Patreon gets to there, that's something that you are definitely interested in doing in the future, and we are trying to make the Patreon appealing as well and pay people back for being invested in the project. So I know I've offered to live stream the comic, and we're going to ask if the animators are willing to live stream their process, so that we can do some public live streams. But we're also planning on seeing if we can do additional private live streams for patrons, just so that if you guys do donate, you have that extra bit of sort of like repayment back, like a thank you. And I know that Alex is looking for how he can do as much as possible, even with the day job, managing the animation, managing the comics. You're still like, what else can I do? What else can I do? Let me learn how to edit. What else can I do? So we really are trying to get a lot more content out in the meantime. But we do have a schedule. Comics would be released about every 3 months, which means the dubs would be released about every 3 months as well after the comics have come out. And that's just to kind of tide over until the pilot, because like we said, it's going to be deep into 2022. So there will be a lot of time, and we want to make sure you guys have something to look at and something to see in the meantime.
Right, exactly. And I think this will make you even more excited to see the pilot, because this is really the first opportunity that you're going to get to see these characters in action. We had a short trailer about a year ago, and then we had our intro sequence. But this is really, the first experience you're going to have with the writing of the series and the dialogue, and the dynamics between, Jack and Nolan, or like any other characters that you love. And that brings up a great point, is that when you become a patron, one of the major benefits of that is you get a voice in what direction we take with specific things. So if we have a outline of stories that we want to tackle for an episode of Wildcard Shuffle, let's say the options are Lucy's backstory, or how did Violet and Daisy join Poison, or what was Jack's childhood like. We'll run like a poll of that, or even just have an open-ended discussion and ask, okay, so what do the patrons want to see? What do you guys, the fans, want to see? And you can actually vote on that. And then likely, we have these stories written already, so we can just pick the most popular option, or the option that you want to see. If you want to see, the Poison origin story of, how Violet and Daisy joined Poison, and that's what gets picked, that will be the next episode. So that's something to keep in mind, as well as a fan and as someone who is financially contributing to the series. You do have a voice and you have a say, not necessarily with specific plot details and what we do with certain characters, but you have a voice in, what episode comes next, or what you'd like to see next, or maybe it's something, we haven't even considered, a story that you'd really want to hear that we can start writing based on feedback.
Yeah, so the characters, the outline, everything like that is set in stone. It's just which things you're gonna see. So it's not like anybody's changing the characters or the plot to appease the audience. That's definitely not what we're doing. It's just what you are interested in seeing, and you all get to vote on it and such.
Right, exactly. So I think that's it. But I would encourage anyone, who has questions or comments, leave a comment, here on YouTube down below, or all of our DMs are open on social media. So you can always send us a DM, email us. Our email is wildcardtheshow@gmail.com. That's always open. I really highly encourage open communication. If you have concerns about the direction we're taking the series in, or you just have questions about what's coming next, or even if you just have feedback or suggestions, I'm always open to hear those. I can't promise that I'll implement any of them, but I'm always open to hearing feedback, especially if it's constructive. So yes, I highly encourage any comments, any messages. Please always stay in touch with us, especially if you are, making a financial contribution. You have the right to know where your money is going, and we will always be transparent about that. If the message isn't as clear in what we're posting on social media, or what we're uploading here on YouTube, you can always message me directly, and I will, respond as quickly as I can.
Yeah. Plus, comments help the algorithm, so. So if you have a question, feel free to ask. But yeah, and I know you're usually, anytime I talk to you, you're exhausted by the time I say something, because you've spent all day. You go to work, and then you come home, and then you answer all the comments you can, and then you're like, oh, let me tell the animators this, so let me tell these people that, and I'm like, hey, help me with this thing, and it'll be midnight, and you're like, oh, okay, let me get that. So if your comment doesn't get answered, it might just be because, like I said, Alex has a day job. I have the webcomic that I'm also working on at the same time. So we do have our attention pulled in a lot of directions right now. Especially you. You're I don't know that there's a single hour in a day you're not working. I have to. I whenever I try to set up meetings with him, it's like, okay, when do you go to work, and when is a time before you go to work I can talk to you? Because once that starts off, your day is booked. So if we don't answer, it's not like intentionally trying to ignore anybody. It's just we're really busy, and we might miss it. In that case, like Alex said, feel free to if your comment doesn't get a response, feel free to send it as a DM or email. Don't be shy. And I think that's about all we wanted to mention. I know I'm also going to try to stream on the Discord too once the comics get rolling. But anything that's kind of spoilery, we try to keep more to Patreon, since we don't want to spoil the comics before we release them, is the thing.
Yeah, it's especially important, with a series that revolves around murder mystery. You don't want to give away the killer, before the episode is actually out. So All right, well, thank you guys for listening. I know this was a little longer than most of our videos, and it's a little, off-brand for us. We're usually, posting short animations or, voice clips. But thank you so much for listening. And again, highly encourage any comments or questions. And we hope you look forward to the release of the first comic this month.
Yeah. Technically a re-release, but
Yeah.
like I said, I needed enough of a buffer time. So after the re-release, the next comic, the Mystery with Jack and Nolan Part 1 should be coming out in August. So not terribly far from now.
Yeah, and it's a good one too.